Arab executive swore he'd make her his wife. But on their honeymoon, he discovered this about the African woman. He was one of the richest men in the Middle East. A billionaire oil executive, powerful, feared, and always in control. But the day he met her, a woman who had nothing but the clothes on her back and a pair of eyes that had seen too much pain, something inside him shifted. He made a vow that stunned everyone around him. She will be my wife, no matter what it takes. And he did it. Against all odds, against his family's fury, against a society that couldn't understand his choice, he married the African woman who had once begged for water outside his estate gates. But on their honeymoon, in a secluded villa in Zanzibar, as the waves crashed and the moonlight bathed their skin, the woman revealed a truth so heartbreaking, so life-changing, it would shake him to his core, and what he did next would leave the world speechless. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss stories that will move your soul and challenge your heart. Now, let's dive into this unforgettable story of sacrifice, loyalty, and the secret that nearly destroyed a love born from nothing. The sun hung low over Abu Dhabi, casting a golden haze over the private estate of Sheikh Karim Al Fulan, a man whose name alone commanded silence in boardrooms and awe on television screens. He was only 38, but already controlled one of the most powerful energy empires in the Gulf. Every morning, he walked past polished marble columns, between gold-framed mirrors and fragrant jasmine gardens, untouchable, armored in wealth, sculpted in solitude. But that morning was different. She was standing at the gate, barefoot, dust on her legs, a crumpled scarf covering her hair. Her skin gleamed under the morning sun, but her eyes were hollow, as if they had stopped hoping long ago. She wasn't begging, she wasn't crying, she wasn't even asking for anything. She was simply waiting. Karim noticed her as his blacked-out SUV slowed to leave the compound. At first, he thought it was another wandering soul, maybe a domestic worker who got lost or thrown out, like many were in this cruel part of the world. But she didn't flinch when the guards shouted. She just stood there, hands clasped in front of her, eyes fixed on the rising sun. He told the driver to stop. In 10 years of building his empire, no one had ever made him do that. Stop. Not for a stranger. Not for a woman with no name. "What's your name?" he asked, lowering the window. She looked up at him, slow, cautious. "Afia." Her voice was soft, but carried weight. It wasn't a name. It was a wound. "What are you doing here?" "I was told someone here might give me water. I haven't had any since yesterday." He should have rolled up the window. He should have signaled the guards to escort her out. His phone was already buzzing with urgent messages, an oil deal in Nigeria, a call from his younger brother in Riyadh, a scandal involving one of his executives. He had no time for women who arrived at his gates out of nowhere, but he stared into those eyes and said, "Get in." Afia blinked. What? Get in the car. She didn't move. Karim stepped out, walked around the vehicle, and opened the door himself. Either you get in, or you go back to that sun. Choose. Something cracked in her, but she climbed in. That night, he gave her food, a private suite, clean clothes, a name tag that read, guest, not staff, not servant. By morning, she was gone. For the first time in years, Karim felt anger, not the sharp fury he used in meetings, but something deeper. He had wanted her to stay. He needed her to stay, and he didn't even know why. He sent his men to search the streets. For 3 days, they found nothing. But on the 4th morning, she was back. Same gait, same silence. This time, she looked at him with defiance. You didn't have to look for me, she said. I wasn't looking, he lied. But you're here again. I need work, she whispered. Karim shook his head. You won't work here. She straightened her spine. Then let me go. You're not going anywhere, Afia. He turned to the guard. No one touches her. She belongs to me now. The world would never understand what happened that week. Not his mother who cried when he said he wouldn't marry a princess. Not his investors who whispered behind closed doors. Not even Afia who kept asking, why me? He didn't know either. He only knew this. He had sworn to himself. He would make her his wife. But what Karim didn't know was that Afia carried something deep inside her. Something dark. And as he watched her sleep that first night under his roof, he could feel it like a storm on the edge of the desert, unseen, but inevitable. Something that would follow them, even into their honeymoon. 2 weeks after Afia returned to Karim's estate, she no longer slept on the edge of the guest bed. The bruises on her ribs had faded. Her steps were steadier, though still careful, like a woman used to walking over broken glass. Karim had given her everything: privacy, protection, silence when she needed it. He never asked her where she came from, not yet. Something told him she wasn't ready, or maybe he wasn't ready to hear it. He watched her from the corridor that night, barefoot in a silk robe, brushing her hair in front of the mirror. She didn't know he was there. For a man who lived behind walls of bulletproof glass and armored contracts, this woman had become his most vulnerable point. It scared him more than war. That night, he sat across from her at the long dining table, where kings had eaten before. You can leave whenever you want, he said suddenly, eyes fixed on his untouched plate. I know, she replied without hesitation. But you don't. No. She reached for her glass of water, fingers trembling slightly. I don't. He studied her face, the way she blinked too slowly, the way her lips tightened whenever he said something kind. She wasn't afraid of him, not really, but she was afraid of being wanted. Are you married? she asked. No. Engaged? He shook his head. Then why me? Her voice cracked finally. You don't even know who I am. Kareem stood, circled the table, and stopped beside her chair. You're right. I don't. He leaned down and whispered, But I know what it feels like to be empty. And then, without warning, he reached into his pocket and placed something on the table. A small black box. Afia froze. Kareem. It's not a proposal. He paused. Not yet. But it's a promise. She didn't touch the box. She didn't even look at it. She just sat there, wide-eyed, silent, as if her soul had left the room to breathe. He returned to his seat and didn't press her. The box remained unopened between them like a sleeping animal. 3 days later, she opened it. Alone. Inside was a gold chain with one word engraved, Safe. And that night, Afia walked into his room. She didn't knock. She stood at the doorway, barely visible under the soft golden light. I'm not who you think I am, she said. I don't care. I've lied. I still don't care. She took a step closer. You don't know what I've done to survive. He rose slowly, crossing the room toward her. Then tell me. But she didn't. Instead, she walked straight into his chest, buried her face in his shoulder, and for the first time since they met, she wept. Kareem held her. Not like a lover, like someone holding the earth together. 2 months later, the palace buzzed with news. Sheikh Kareem al-Fulan, the golden heir of the al-Fulan dynasty, would marry a woman not from any royal house, not even a well-known family, but a woman no one had heard of before. No lineage, no dowry, no name in society. Some accused him of madness, others of sin. But Kareem didn't flinch. He married her in a small private ceremony in Rabat, Morocco. The press wasn't allowed. No photographers. Only the imam, 2 witnesses, and a garden full of white jasmine. Her veil was made of ivory lace. Her eyes, still heavy with secrets, never left his face. He whispered into her ear at the altar, I don't need your past, just your future. And she nodded. But honeymoons have a way of peeling the soul open. On the 3rd night, deep in a luxury villa on a private island off the Zanzibar coast, Afia woke in the middle of the night, sweating, shaking, silent tears streaming down her face. Kareem stirred beside her. Nightmare? She shook her head. Then, after a long silence, she said, Kareem, there's something I need to tell you. And just like that, the silence shattered. The air inside the Zanzibar villa felt heavier after she spoke. It wasn't just the humidity, it was the weight of something neither gold nor money could ease. Kareem turned toward her in the moonlit room, watching her lips tremble, her fingers twisted in the silk bedsheet. The sound of the ocean outside faded beneath the storm that was clearly rising inside her. He reached out, touched her shoulder gently. "Tell me." Afia didn't speak right away. Her eyes were locked on the far wall as though if she looked at him, she might break. Then finally, in a voice barely louder than breath, she said, "I had a child." Kareem's heart stopped for a second. "I was 16, she continued, "and I didn't have a choice." Her words hung there like wet clothes, clinging to the silence. "I was taken," she added, "from my village. I won't give you the man's name. He doesn't deserve to exist in my mouth. But he made sure I disappeared. And when I tried to escape, he made sure my child disappeared too." Kareem sat up, every muscle in his chest tightening. He wanted to speak, to say something, anything, but nothing came. "I looked for him," she whispered. "For years. I crossed borders. I lived in shelters. I lied to survive. And when I arrived in your country, I had nothing left but bones and guilt." Now she turned to him, tears streaking her face, voice cracking. "I should have told you before the wedding. But I didn't know if you'd still want me, if you'd still see me as a woman, as a wife." Kareem didn't blink, didn't move. "I'm not clean," she said. "Not by your world standards. I'm not royal. I'm not a virgin bride. I'm a woman who lost everything and had to learn how to keep breathing when her heart had stopped." The room was still. For a long moment, Kareem stared at her as if seeing her for the first time, not as a mystery, not as a fragile thing to protect, but as a storm that had somehow survived itself. "I married you," he said, his voice low but firm, "because you were already stronger than any woman I've ever met. But, and if anyone tells me you are unworthy, I will burn their world to the ground." Afia shook her head, her whole body trembling. "You don't understand. I don't even know if my child is alive." Now it was Kareem who reached for her hands, pressing them between his. "Then we'll find out." Afia's eyes widened. "You'd help me?" "Of course I would. You're not alone anymore, Afia. I didn't just vow to protect your future. I accepted your past, even before I knew what it was." He wrapped his arms around her. For minutes, neither of them said a word. The ocean outside whispered against the sand, and for the first time in years, Afia allowed herself to collapse. Not from weakness, but from the rare permission to be held. Later that night, as she slept curled into his chest, Kareem stared into the dark. He thought about what she had just told him, about the unknown child, about the man who had taken everything from her, and something inside him stirred. Not just love, not just protection, justice. By morning, Kareem had made several calls. Discreet, powerful, men with skills that never asked questions. He told no one, not even Afia. But deep in the system, files were being pulled. Old border crossings investigated, shelters revisited, DNA samples requested under aliases, and he gave the order himself. Find the boy. Because Karim Al-Fulan wasn't just a husband anymore. He was on a mission. The sound of waves brushing the shore had become white noise by the 4th day of their honeymoon. On the surface, nothing had changed. Afia still smiled over breakfast, still walked barefoot through the open-air villa, still held Karim's hand as they watched the tide roll in. But beneath the calm, a current of tension pulled at Karim's every breath. He had made the calls, activated resources that even his own board of directors didn't know existed. His network reached through Dubai, Nairobi, Addis Ababa, through adoption agencies, missing child reports, border control logs. He had spared no expense, but still, no news. Karim sat alone on the villa's balcony that evening, laptop open, eyes scanning the encrypted messages that trickled in from agents he trusted with his life. Each one felt like a dead end. Possible match found in Kenya. Turned out negative. Records lost in 2014 due to flooding. Local official uncooperative. Multiple children trafficked under similar circumstances. No solid lead yet. He exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. It was the first time in years he felt helpless, not because of money or politics or power, but because he was chasing a ghost that meant everything to the woman he loved. He couldn't tell her. Not yet. Not until he had something real. She deserved more than empty hope. Behind him, he heard soft footsteps. Karim? Her voice was gentle. He quickly shut the laptop and looked up. Afia wore a thin white shawl over her shoulders, her hair tied loosely, eyes glowing in the candlelight. "You're working?" "No," he lied. She looked at him with a knowing smile and sat beside him. "I can always tell when your mind is somewhere else." He reached for her hand. "You've had enough burden in your life, Afia. Let me carry some of it." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I'm not afraid anymore." He kissed her forehead. "Then I will never stop until I bring you peace." The next morning, while Afia explored the island with a local guide, Karim received a message that froze him in place. "We found a lead. West Nairobi. Orphanage closed 5 years ago. Boy matches timeline and description. There's more. Sending file now." He opened the file. His breath left his lungs. A photo. A boy, maybe 12 or 13. Dark skin, bright eyes, a scar near his left ear. Holding a wooden airplane, looking directly into the lens with a stare so familiar, it made Karim's chest ache. The message continued. "Name on record, Elias. He doesn't know who his parents were. Orphanage director confirmed. Mother dropped him off as an infant during the night. No contact since. Date matches." Kareem sat in stunned silence. This wasn't a vague maybe. This was a thread that could tie together a decade of silence and pain. He called his contact. "Prepare for a DNA match. Quietly. I want to be sure before I tell her." "Yes, sir." He ended the call just as Afia walked through the door laughing, her cheeks flushed from the island sun. "I found a woman who makes these necklaces from seashells," she said brightly, holding up a delicate string. "Maybe we should bring some back for your sister." Kareem stood and walked toward her, heart pounding. He kissed her cheek and smiled as naturally as he could. "That sounds perfect." He didn't say a word about the boy, not yet, because something still didn't sit right. Why was the orphanage shut down? Why had no one ever found this child before? What happened in those missing years? And more than that, what if Afia wasn't ready to meet the truth she had buried so deep? That night, as she slept peacefully by his side, Kareem stood by the window, staring out at the moonlit waves. Somewhere in Nairobi, a boy who might be his stepson slept alone. And in his gut, Kareem felt it. This story was about to take a turn. Not all reunions are sweet. Some are shattered by truths that were never meant to surface. 3 days later, Kareem stood on a quiet street in Nairobi, far from the polished luxury of his world. No bodyguards, no suits, just a plain shirt, dark sunglasses, and a mission that had nothing to do with oil or contracts. The air here was thick with dust and diesel. Children ran barefoot through alleys. Stray dogs slept under rusted trucks. And just behind a rusted blue gate stood the building he had come for. St. Bernardine's orphan shelter, closed, abandoned, forgotten by the system, but not by the people who once lived inside. A small man opened the gate after several knocks. Thin, nervous, with ink stains on his fingers and eyes that darted too quickly. "You're the one who called?" Kareem asked, stepping forward. The man nodded. "You sent the donation, so I talk." Kareem's voice was calm, but sharp. "Where is the boy?" The man swallowed. "Elias. He's still here. Lives with the old groundskeeper and 2 other kids. They had nowhere else to go when the place shut down. Government didn't care." Kareem's heart began to race. "I want to see him." The man hesitated. "He doesn't talk much. Hasn't since he was 5. Kareem frowned. "Why?" "No one knows. One day he just stopped. He draws, though, all the time." They walked through a cracked courtyard and into a dusty room with peeling walls, and there, in a corner by the window, sat a boy. The same boy from the photo, leaner, taller, but the scar was there, just below his ear. He was drawing in a notebook, completely focused. Kareem stood silently, watching. He didn't know what to say. What do you say to a child who might be your wife's long-lost son? "Elias," the man said gently, "visitor for you." The boy looked up, eyes guarded, cautious. His pencil paused mid-stroke. Karim knelt down. "My name is Karim," he said softly. "I knew someone who loved you very much." Elias stared at him, expression unreadable. "May I see your drawing?" The boy slowly turned the notebook around. It was a sketch of a woman. Simple lines, but unmistakable. Her eyes, her nose, her scarf. It was Afia. Karim's breath caught. "You draw her often?" Elias nodded. "Do you remember her?" The boy hesitated, then shrugged, confused, as if the memory was too far away to grasp. Karim smiled gently. "You're very talented." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. "I brought you something." Elias opened it to find a delicate bracelet, gold-plated, with his name engraved on one side and a date on the other, October 17th. The date Afia had given him, the night she gave birth, and the last time she saw her son. Elias turned the bracelet in his hands, eyes softening. Then, without a word, he slid it onto his wrist. Karim's voice cracked slightly. "Would you like to meet someone? Someone who remembers you? Someone who never stopped hoping you were alive?" Elias looked up slowly. His lips parted. And for the first time in nearly 8 years, he whispered a single word. "Mom." The next day, Karim arranged the flight. He didn't tell Afia where they were going, only that he had a surprise. She wore a soft beige dress, her hair braided loosely, eyes bright with curiosity as they landed back on the African mainland. When the car pulled up to the small compound, she frowned. "Where are we?" Karim turned to her, heart pounding. "Somewhere I think you've waited years to see." He opened the door, and Elias stepped out. At first, Afia froze. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, slowly, as if the universe had just reversed its silence, she stepped forward. "Elias?" she said, her voice cracking. The boy nodded. She dropped to her knees, and he ran to her, arms open, tears streaming, the sound of his voice echoing as he cried out, "Mama!" She held him so tightly Karim thought they might both collapse into the earth. She kissed his forehead, his hands, the scar she remembered like it was her own. And Karim turned away, tears in his own eyes, as the reunion unfolded beneath a golden sky. But far away, in another city, someone had also received news. A man with a past connected to both Elias and Afia. And he wasn't happy. Because Elias wasn't just a child who had been lost. He was a threat, a witness. And someone wanted him silenced, permanently. They spent the next 2 days in a quiet safe house just outside Nairobi. Afia never let Elias out of her sight. She cooked for him, braided his hair the way she used to when he was a baby, and watched him sleep as if afraid he might disappear again if she blinked too long. Karim had never seen her like that. lighter, whole. The haunted look in her eyes had faded, replaced by something close to peace. But Kareem couldn't rest. He kept his phone close, constantly checking messages from the private team, still digging into Elias's history. Something wasn't right. The orphanage's sudden closure, the missing files, the fact that Elias had stopped speaking for years. People didn't just fall off the map like that, unless someone wanted them to. And then, the call came. "Kareem," the voice said, low and cautious. "We found something. You're not going to like it." "What is it?" "There's a man. Used to run a trafficking network in Western Africa, especially in conflict zones. Disappeared about 10 years ago after a woman escaped with an infant. We believe that woman was Afia." Kareem stood still, eyes narrowing. "Name?" "Bakari Mumba, former militia recruiter, known for targeting villages and turning survivors into commodities. There's a rumor he's resurfaced in Mombasa. And he has reason to believe Elias is alive, which means he has reason to find him and finish what he started." Kareem clenched his jaw. This wasn't just a ghost from Afia's past. It was a wolf, awake, watching. He ended the call and stepped into the kitchen, where Afia was humming softly, Elias beside her peeling oranges. "Can we talk?" he asked gently. Afia looked up, smile fading at the tone in his voice. She nodded and followed him into the next room. "What is it?" she asked. "Is something wrong?" Kareem hesitated. "Do you know a man named Bakari Mumba?" The color drained from her face. She stepped back, nearly stumbling against the wall. Kareem moved toward her, catching her by the arms. "Afia! Don't say that name. I need to." Tears welled in her eyes. "He's not real. He's not supposed to be real anymore. He is, and he knows about Elias." Her breath caught in her throat. She looked down, shaking. I thought I escaped him. I thought if I never said his name again, he couldn't find me." "You were wrong," Kareem said, voice steady but filled with warmth. "And now we have to protect Elias. Together." Afia sat down, trembling. "He took everything. My family, my freedom. And when I tried to run, he branded me. Told me no one would ever want a ruined woman." Kareem knelt in front of her. "He was wrong. You are not ruined. You're stronger than anyone I know. I thought he was dead. He's not. But he will be if he comes near you or Elias again." Later that night, Kareem made another call. This one wasn't to lawyers or investigators. It was to a man he hadn't spoken to in years. Zaid, a childhood friend who now operated under the radar in parts of East Africa, where law was more suggestion than rule. "I need protection," Kareem said. "For who?" "My wife. And her son." There was a pause. "Does this have anything to do with Bakari Mumba?" Kareem didn't answer. "I'll send people," Zayd said. "Quiet ones. But you know how this ends, Karim. Men like Bakari don't stop unless they're buried. Then we bury him." The next morning, Afia watched Elias play outside, the sun catching in his hair. She turned to Karim, her voice quiet. "Do you think I can really have peace? That one day this will all just fade?" He took her hand, kissed her fingers one by one. "No. I think the pain will always be part of you, but so will this moment. And so will he." She looked at her son, then back at the man who gave her everything. "I'm not afraid anymore," she whispered. But neither of them saw the man across the street, watching from behind a newspaper, disguised in plain clothes, eyes locked on the boy, and a gun under his coat. Bakari raised the gun, but before he could aim, two plainclothes men tackled him to the ground. Karim's security team, silent, swift, ruthless. Afia screamed, shielding Elias as Karim ran to them, heart pounding. "He's safe," Karim whispered, wrapping his arms around both of them. Bakari was dragged away, shouting Afia's name with venom. She didn't look at him, not once. That part of her life was over. Weeks later, Karim handed Afia an envelope from Bakari. Inside, just a single sentence: "He's not your only child." Afia collapsed into a chair. "What does it mean?" she asked, breathless. Karim sat beside her, already calling his team. "I don't know," he said, "but we're going to find out." 6 months later, in a private villa overlooking the Red Sea, Afia stood in the garden, Elias laughing as he chased butterflies. Karim approached her slowly, holding her hand. "You still think you're unworthy of love?" he asked. She shook her head, eyes shining. "Not anymore." He kissed her softly, because they had all survived, and now, finally, they could live.